Hi, I'm Claire. I'm not an RV expert, but I'm here with Chris, who's a certified RV technician. He's going to be answering a couple questions I have about toilet paper use in RVs. Before we start, though, a couple ground rules. We're here to educate you, so your education is our priority. And number two, we're not here to talk down on any brands or throw any brands under the bus.
That's right. We've got a whole bunch of information to cover here, and you're going to learn something today. So let's get started.
Chris, let's jump right into this. I have a few questions that I think some other RVers are asking. First of all, I was wondering, can I use toilet paper in my RV?
Absolutely. You can definitely use toilet paper in your RV. There is no reason not to.
Awesome. So if I'm going to be using toilet paper, can I flush it?
Absolutely. Flushing it is definitely the best method of disposing of it. There's no need to mess around with a trash can, a paint bucket with a lid, a diaper genie. You can just flush it straight down into the black tank.
So since I'll be flushing it, do I need a specific RV brand toilet paper?
No, you don't. Especially if you're using a high quality holding tank treatment, you will not need to use any specific RV brands. For one, they're really expensive. For two, they're not the most comfortable to use. And then on top of that, with that high quality holding tank treatment, it should be able to break down whatever winds up inside of the holding tank as far as toilet paper goes. So that should be the best way to go about it.
Okay, gotcha. So how much should I be using though?
You can use quite a bit within reason. I would say anywhere between like 4 to 8 sheets. I wouldn't recommend like wrapping your hand in it and then going after it, but all within reason for sure.
Definitely, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Okay, so if I run out of toilet paper or I just forget to pack it, can I use something like flushable wipes or paper towel?
Flushable wipes or paper towels is definitely something which we do not recommend that you flush down into the black tank. After doing a lot of testing on both flushable wipes and paper towels, they just do not break down the same way which toilet paper does. So keep those out of the holding tank pretty much at all costs. If you are in a pinch though and you do need to use something like that, definitely just throw those away versus flushing them down.
Definitely makes sense. So I'm only using toilet paper here. Does it matter where I dump it?
No, you can dump the Blackwater holding tank contents in any of the standard places where you would dump in general, either a dump station or a septic system. As long as you're just using toilet paper and you're not using wet wipes or paper towels or anything like that, you should be able to dump it where you would normally dump your Blackwater holding tank.
Okay, amazing. That's what I was hoping you were going to say. So since I can't see inside the black tank, how do I know my toilet paper is actually breaking down?
Well, you can tell how well your toilet paper is breaking down typically by looking through the clear elbow when you go to dump the Blackwater holding tank. If you're seeing like big chunks of toilet paper going past there, it's probably not breaking down to the level which you want it to. However, if you're only just seeing like small little specks or wisps of white going past as you're dumping the tank, it's breaking down to the level which it should be. There's another way which you can tell as well, and that would be by testing the sensors by pressing the button on the control panel. And if you're getting misreading sensors, a big chance is that it's going to be toilet paper which is stuck against there.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely good to know. So after going through all these questions, what brand of toilet paper should I use?
Well, that is a great segue. Next, we're going to show you how we tested a whole bunch of different toilet paper brands in different situations to see which ones broke down and which ones didn't.
So Chris, can you tell me a little bit more about these tests that you've done?
Absolutely. So we tried to, as accurately as possible, mimic what two situations in an RV holding tank would be like for the toilet paper, that is. For getting all of these started, what I did was I took 4 sheets of each of the 5 different brands of toilet paper which we have and added them to 72 ounces of water and then poured them from a height of 14 inches. The purpose for that is simulating flushing a full toilet bowl of water into the black tank. Because believe it or not, that fall from the toilet bowl into the tank can actually disrupt the toilet paper a lot and really break it down. So we did this test for each of the 5 different brands. And then on one cart, I had it completely stationary to mimic a full-timer RV or somebody who just is basically keeping the RV in one location. For the other one, I shook the cart back and forth for roughly 7 minutes a day for 3 days in a row to mimic an RV going down the road. What's kind of interesting about this is that from other experiences which I've had, we did a test where we filled a holding tank filled with water and various brands of toilet paper, and then I drove extremely erratically on a closed road in order to mimic what it would look like to be at the most intense conditions of camping. No one should be or would be driving their RV this aggressively, but we did learn a lot from this video. And what we learned was that even though I was driving pretty much like a madman, it did not still shake the water up nearly as much as we were expecting it to. So we were able to mimic what a normal RV going down the road was under normal conditions to the best of our ability, of course, in order to see what it would look like shaking back and forth. And we based the time frame off of 20 minutes, which would be an average drive from a campsite to a dump station, or from one camping area to a dump station, something along those lines. And that's how we went about doing this test.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome. Can you walk me through these?
Absolutely. So I laid these out in alphabetical order. This is from our testing of the stationary RV. So there was no additional motion added to these outside of the initial pour, which we just demonstrated. So starting over here on the left, we have Angel Soft, which had some pretty significant breakdown. This one's going to be your average grocery store style brand of toilet paper. Next, we have Camco, which is our RV specific brand of toilet paper, which we tested out. As you can see here, it did not do much as far as breakdown was concerned. Over here we have Charmin, which is going to be your more high-end, close to luxury brand, if you can call it toilet paper a luxury brand. There's almost no breakdown here whatsoever. Over here we have our big box store representation from Kirkland. This one actually broke up surprisingly well. And then finally on the end we have Scott, which is a single ply, and it is often recommended to use in case you don't have access to an RV toilet paper. So from the results of all of these, we had the best breakdown from Angel Soft and Kirkland, and then nearly no breakdown whatsoever, which was pretty surprising from the test, from Camco, Charmin, and Scott.
Interesting, yeah. So you'd say it doesn't really matter if you use Scott versus the RV or this kind of...
Yeah, pretty much any one of these, and this is just with water and it's sitting still, they stay together pretty well, but it doesn't seem to matter too much as far as breakdown goes.
Interesting, wow, yeah. So these are the bins that moved around. Can you kind of
right.
go over those a little?
Absolutely. So again, I ran these back and forth for 7 minutes for 3 days in a row, and there is significant more breakdown than the one which just sat idly. So that's kind of an interesting takeaway on it. Starting over here on the left, again, we kept them in the same order. We've got the Angel Soft, which broke down very well. We have Camco, which broke down definitely enough for it to be dumped without any issues whatsoever, but it almost looks like somebody shredded it, which is interesting. We have Charmin, which stayed pretty much intact. And then we have Kirkland, another one, which did excellent as far as breakdown goes. And then finally, we have Scott. And again, it broke down definitely enough for it to work perfectly fine in pretty much any holding tank, but nowhere near as much as, say, the Kirkland and the Angel Soft, which, again, is a very interesting takeaway from this, because I was sort of thinking that the Camco, the RV-specific one, and the Scott, the single ply, would be basically powder inside of there, and that is just not what we've seen. But
yeah, that is super interesting to see. So what does that kind of say overall about RV-specific ones, one-ply, household, things like that?
That's a great question. I would state that pretty much you can use any of these inside of an RV holding tank, maybe with the exception of the Charmin, because even with the motion from that one, it simply didn't break down that much. Not enough for us to say, Yeah, you can use any of them. That would be the one which I would be like, maybe not that one, but the
Yeah.
rest of them, by all means, go for it for sure.
Yeah, wow, this is super interesting to see. All right, Chris, what do we have going on here?
So I went ahead and ran a special bonus test, which was to try a holding tank treatment with the same two methods that we did before with all 5 of the same brands of toilet paper, just to see if there was any difference. So this is our stationary batch, which we did with a holding tank treatment. We did 1 ounce for each one of these, and then just the normal water pour method. All of this stuff is the exact same as the previous test. This is the stationary one, and the results are actually pretty interesting. Starting over here on the left, we have Angel Soft, which comparing it with the stationary versus with the holding tank treatment, it broke down a whole lot more. The same thing goes with the Camco. Again, I don't know why it goes into a paper shredder mode, but that's, I guess, how that breaks down. But the one which is still standing strong and has not done much of anything, regardless of what you do with it, is the Charmin. That is just holding together. It doesn't want to fall apart. Kirkland fell apart quite well compared to the stationary test from before. And then again, the one which confuses me the absolute most is the single ply Scott still holds together quite well, even with the holding tank treatment. So there was some pretty significant changes between some of them. The Charmin and the Scott still held extremely strong, and the Kirkland, the Angel Soft, and the Camco all broke down far better with a holding tank treatment than with nothing at all and just sitting idle. Again, these were all of the idle ones. So let's take a look at the ones in motion.
Yeah, let's do it. So these are the tests that you did with motion and a treatment solution?
That's correct. So we did the exact same thing as before. This time was the same shake. It was on the same cart as the set without any holding tank treatment in there. And we've got some results, to say the least. It's great. So over here on the Angel Soft, it has been broken down to a level where it is basically shreds. It's shredded. It's very impressive how much that one broke down. The Camco, again, it's broken down more than the stationary one with the holding tank treatment. It loves those strips. It looks really cool. I'll give it that for sure. But it breaks down great. No complaints on that end. Just the cost was always my issue with the Camco. The Charmin, it broke down more than any of the other ones which we've tested before. As far as the Charmin is concerned, for like with the Charmin, it still is way more intact than any of these other ones.
Definitely.
The Kirkland, again, really similar to the Angel Soft, maybe less than the Angel Soft, I would say, is pretty much decimated. There's almost no recognizable toilet paper aspects of this. It looks like it just went through a fine shredder. And the Scott, finally, we have broken it down in the way which I was expecting it to. So the takeaway from this was that an RV in motion with a holding tank treatment will break down pretty much all, with the exception of Charmin, toilet paper inside of your holding tank.
Wow, yeah, it's very cool to see. So
Yeah.
now that we've gone through all these tests, is there a brand that you'd recommend?
Absolutely. I would say that from stationary to in motion to with a holding tank treatment, the two which I think stood out above all of the other ones was Angel Soft and Kirkland, and in no specific order. I think both of them did a fantastic job at breaking down. I think they're both soft to the touch and perfectly fine to use. and they're significantly cheaper than
Mm-hmm.
an RV specific holding tank treatment. And so, as far as toilet paper breakdown is concerned, I would definitely go with the Angel Soft and the Kirkland.
If I wanted to do this at home, could I?
That's a great question. And I wouldn't recommend that you do it at home. The only reason why I say that is because this is not a like for like test. So, in a real RV, in real life, in motion, there's always going to be the element of waste and like human pee inside of the tank.
Mm.
And so, because of that, that's going to be activating the major active ingredients inside of a high quality holding tank treatment. And because of that, you're going to have some different results. So if you do this test at home, you might get similar results, but we tried to do this in as much of a vacuum as we possibly could to get repeatable um, data which we could take away from this. And so because of that, I wouldn't recommend doing it at home. And yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll leave it to the experts then.
That sounds great. Cool. So now that we've at least been able to demonstrate a basic breakdown of toilet paper in an RV holding tank, I'm going to walk you through a couple of different tips and tricks which will help to avoid getting clogs in there as well. And it kind of all starts with water. You're going to want to use enough water in order to break up the toilet paper as it's going into the holding tank, and then it will also allow it to flow out of the holding tank as well when it's time to dump the tank. So we always recommend flushing the toilet with at least a halfway full bowl of water whenever you're using the toilet. And that's typically enough water for the toilet paper to get flushed down. Another thing which we recommend is going to be using a reasonable amount of toilet paper. So anywhere between like 4 to 8 sheets for each time what you're using toilet paper is a reasonable amount. However, if you're using far too much of it, you can actually start to build a pyramid of toilet paper inside of the black tank, and that can certainly lead to clogs. The other thing which we recommend, and again, this is from our test which we saw, was to use a high quality holding tank treatment. And that will just help facilitate the breakdown of the toilet paper and allow it to flow right out of the tank. When you have all of that water, it'll help push everything out without any issues.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Going back to what you said about the water, is it possible to use too much water?
No, not really. The only thing which you would run into if you were using too much water would be that you would just need to dump the holding tank a little bit more frequently. Outside of that, you should be relatively good to go.
And what about too little of water?
Well, if you use too little water, what can happen is the holding tank, when you go to dump it, it won't have enough force to push its way through there. And so that can lead to clogs if you're not using enough water inside of there. So we always default with use as much water as you can.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I'll remember that. Water, water, water.
Yes, indeed.
All right. That was a lot of information we just covered. Can you kind of recap it for me?
Absolutely. So the major takeaways from this video are going to be that you can definitely use toilet paper in your RV. You can definitely flush it into the black water holding tank. It doesn't have to be a specific RV toilet paper. In fact, from our breakdown tests, the two which we liked the most were Angel Soft and Kirkland Signature. You can avoid clogs while using toilet paper if you're using plenty of water, you're using a high quality holding tank treatment. If you need help selecting a treatment, we have another video linked in the description below. And if you happen to get a clog or some misreading sensors, which can happen even if you're doing all of the right steps from time to time in your normal RVing experience, then we also have guides, which we have linked in the description down below as well. That'll help walk you through how to take care of those.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks so much for watching this one, guys. We've got a whole bunch more videos on RV related topics, and we will have those linked down in the description below.
And if you guys love this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.